Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at the brand new Matt Lesniewski book, Faceless and the Family. Really excited about this book. We interviewed Matt on the channel a long time ago now when he was in the crowdfunding phase of this using Zoop. Been waiting for it. Just love Matt's art. He just keeps getting better and better. His designs are crazy, and this book really takes his texture work to a whole nother level. So really excited to get this book. It's brand new out. I don't think this black and white version that got, I don't want to say kickstarted, crowdfunded through Zoop is going to be available going forward. I've seen Matt posting that there's going to be a color release broken up into single issues, it looks like, coming through Oni. That'll be interesting. I'm really glad that there is a black and white version of this book, though, because this art is definitely made with black and white in mind. You can see here in the opening sequence, how much texture and cross-hatching and range of value and everything is in the work, and it's really beautiful. So I think it deserves to be seen that way. But if they have whoever's coloring Matt's work on the covers for Xino, it's Xino, it's really strange psychedelic colors, and they're flat, and so they fit well with his work. I don't think work like this needs any extra rendering in the colors because so much of that lighting is done with the artwork, but we'll see. I'm curious to see. So anyways, if you didn't get this book through the crowdfunding, there's going to be another version of it available. But you can see here we have Faceless, kind of the title character, and you get a sense of Matt's just wild, wacky designs. And the cool thing that happens in all of his work that I've seen is that his designs seem a little bit more sensible at the beginning of the book, and as he gets more familiar with drawing the character, the things start to get exaggerated more and more. Like the wobbliness of the arms will get more wobbly, and like this belt that's not connected to anything, that's just kind of floating around him, gets bigger and looser throughout the story, and it becomes more of a design element. And that's kind of been the case in all of his works, is that you still recognize the characters, but he's growing like page by page, and it's just really impressive. And I mean, you get these amazing images like this where he's crawling out of this face in the ground. It's just such cool stuff. I noticed right out the gate, this actually has relevance to the story. I thought it was just a joke at first, but it does have relevance to the story. It is an actual gang, but he hid the word carpal tunnel gang in here, and I thought that was just him talking about, like, yeah, I know this book is gonna wreck my hand, which I hope it doesn't. I hope that Matt's got a mutant hand and he can keep this going, but it just seems like this kind of intense doing this all with microns, as far as I know, is gonna wreck his hand over time, and might already be that he's talking about the carpal tunnel hand. So I hope not. I hope we get many more years of Matt doing this kind of art. I don't want to give away too much about the story. The premise is that Faceless, this character, wants to have his face surgically changed, so he's gone on a journey to get his face changed. He's hiding it behind this mask, and he runs into some other characters and basically grows a group of friends that he considers family. So I just want to show the kind of the cast of characters in there so you can see their designs. This is Giant Jerry. He's this gigantic guy who carries all his belongings around on his back. And they meet up, and how they meet up and come together is pretty. Each introduction and the story flows by real fast, so you don't really get too much of a sense of how the characters bond over time. But I also think, like, there wouldn't, with this kind of art style, there wouldn't be another way to do it. You couldn't stretch this out for thousands of pages, I don't think, especially if Matt's not making a boatload of money on this. This is all not really going to get the money until it's crowdfunded. I see why he took the faster approach to the story, so that's not really a knock on it. It's just what this had to be. Hopefully, this will blow up and it will give him a chance to really dig in and stretch out, because I know when we talked to him, he was saying already he wanted to work on more stretched out storytelling. Here you get a little bit about the world that they're living in, which looks really cool. I'll show you a picture of the world itself in a minute, but the whole world is basically a giant hand, and it will get warts that pop up. So here is just this wart popping up, and then when Jerry punches it, a monster comes out of it. So that's like something they have to deal with. And again, you just get this sense of all this awesome variety of texture that Matt uses. I mean, every kind of cross-hatching you can think of, these really nice cross-contour lines that are on Jerry's like flannel sweater here, all kinds of stippling throughout. Matt's using how microns kind of fade out to get some fades. That's my only complaint about this, is I've seen Matt's art printed better than this. So it's not a problem with Matt's art. I'm very skeptical about Zoop as a company that is doing crowdfunding, but then they're offering artists that they'll print the work for them and fulfill for them. So they're taking away like the two hard parts of it. But what I can tell of this book is it doesn't even look like it was offset printed digital. It looks like it's a digital production, and the binding is okay, but it's just kind of a, it just doesn't seem like the production side of it had a lot of care put into it. And that was my worry about Zoop when I first found out about it. The only other book that I've backed from Zoop is Axe Wheeler John by Nick Patera, which I expect similarly awesome art and awesome story. That one's in color, so I'll be curious to see how that plays out. You can get away with the digital printing a little better, but given the beautiful stuff that Matt does with the way he uses the microns, there is a lot of loss in that, in where it grays out. So some of his value structure is lost. The thicker lines and stuff reproduce really well, and he has such a range of values and so much detail that when you're just flipping through looking at it, it's not terribly imposing. But there's a lot where he gets into the lighter values, like on faces, and I have a couple panels that are bigger, and so I think there is, like, in these areas it just gets fuzzy and blurry looking, and you don't have the fidelity of his lines, which is really too bad. Anyways, this is the third character in the game, Carp. She's a carpenter who's run away from her family. So these are all outcasts in a sense, and having read Matt's other work, Freak and Static, his works always seem to have kind of this loner freak character traveling through a strange world, and it becomes a story about outsiders coming together and creating family. So I really like that as a theme of the story. It's fun. This is the hand planet here, so you get a sense of the whole planet. Faceless and his friends are from the palm. They're down here, and then they're moving through the palm, and they're trying to get to the pinky, which is where Faceless can get his facial reconstruction he wants. So that's the journey of the book and kind of the world. I do think this is very much set up where this is a world that Matt can come back to over and over, and I hope so. Another thing, it's not terribly relevant in the book because there's not a lot of double page spreads, but with the production like this, you really get, on a cool image like this, a lot of gutter loss. Here's a fourth character that they meet named Hal, kind of like this Clint Eastwood cowboy guy. And here you can see where already like the design of the characters are taking over, like the wobbly noodle arms and the way their scarves and stuff work, becoming much more kind of abstract designy work. This is a good example here, this piece, of how much is kind of broken up and lost in the, I don't know how well it shows up on screen, but there's definitely a lot of loss of Matt's mark making here in the reproduction. So yeah, I'm waiting on seeing what Zoop does with Nick Patera, but I'm a bit skeptical that they're just like a digital print on demand service basically. This is another one here where there's just all of this really beautiful, delicate hatchwork that was done with the micron, and it comes out looking a bit like sloppy, scratchy pencil work down here in the lightest part, which is, again, real unfortunate because Matt's obviously putting in a ton of time on this. But really, really fun book, really awesome art, and here's a good example of how like abstract the art can get, especially as it goes on and he gets more comfortable with the characters, where it's really just all about shape play, negative space versus positive space, and then the textures filling up the shapes in really fun ways. And you can always track what's going on. You never get lost in the abstraction, but it's such a different look. Matt's really has really drilled down into his own particular style that I can't really even think of many precedents for. The only person I think also that's drilling down so far into their own personal style is Trad Moore, and there's some similarities, but it's hard to even see like that as an influence at Matt's work. And then this here is just another example of there's all this beautiful, really light ink work that just doesn't even show up. You can tell there's a whole line of hatching across the nose and all this stuff on this whatever's wrapped around her face, his scarves. So yeah, that was the only disappointment for me. I am really looking forward to seeing this stuff colorized, depending on how the colorist does it. I'll definitely check this out in color, because some pages like this where the abstraction is so wild, I think having the nice colors on top of it could like further organize and accentuate the abstraction, but also make it more like immediately readable. I think there's a couple images, this being one, that I really like, and this is part of why I like them, but it takes my brain a second to parse all the shapes out and make sense of it. So it'll be interesting to see what a colorist does with that. But again, you get here where it just looks, there's just all this hatching throughout here is completely lost. So people who are tempted by the Zoop model, I don't think they're out there looking out for the artist's best interest. I think they're just trying to get some money off of artists, but they're not helping them put this into distribution or anything like that. I'm sure Matt made a good chunk of money off this, and Nick did as well on the Axe Wielder John, but I don't know. We'll have to see what Axe Wielder John looks like. But if you're gonna print in black and white, I don't know. I wouldn't go with Zoop, because this was, there's moments like this where I love his art so much, and it's just kind of disappointing what got lost. But either way, the art is still stunning. Like, you're losing some of those lighter values, but there's still so much going on. You'll still enjoy it. And the story's fun. So whether you can find a black and white version, or maybe get the Oni version that's coming out. I think Oni's part of IDW now, and IDW's kind of notorious for shit production as well. But maybe with the color and all of that, like it will look really good. The Xeno covers that I saw look really good. So I'm hoping that's kind of what this book will look like. But I really believe in Matt as an artist, and his projects are all awesome. Enjoyed the stories, and as an artist, it's ridiculous the growth that he shows even from page to page. So I couldn't be more excited about anything else that Matt does.
Like and subscribe and hit the bell, please, so Carson can finish reading his books and let me go home.